Welcome to Bursting Through, the storytelling movement where love, compassion, and empathy take center stage. I'm Steve Peterson. Our conversations will shine light on real stories of allyship, the moments where people choose connection over division, courage over silence, and love over fear. Today's guest is Sarah Schwefel. Sarah is a journalist, speaker, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome patient, and the executive director of fundraising and awareness at the Coalition of Patient Rights in Las Vegas. The Coalition for Patients' Rights is dedicated to improving the health and healthcare of the nation. Doesn't care about political divisions, economic status, or whether you wear red or blue. They care about bringing people together to fight for better healthcare for all. Sarah joins us today to share her personal health journey, her impactful work with the Coalition, and why allyship plays a critical role in every patient's path to recovery. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me, Steve. It's an honor to be here and join you today.
Well, thank you for making time to talk. I've been looking forward to this conversation, so let's get right into it. You are not only a patient's rights advocate, you're also been a patient and are a patient who needs advocacy yourself. Can you share a bit about your personal health journey and where it's brought you to today?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you again for having me on. So I have a condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, as you mentioned. It is a connective tissue disorder that is genetic. And it is basically, if you think of it, the collagen is the glue that holds you together, the connective tissue, right? My glue is faulty. So unfortunately, it affects every single system in my body. It can affect your vision, your gastrointestinal tract, your joints. It causes consistent dislocations and subluxations throughout the body. For myself, my spine was hit the worst. I always grew up, I was double or triple jointed. It didn't affect me as much until I was later in life, around my 20s. That's when I ended up getting a compression fracture in my spine, and everything started spiraling from there. I have 10 plus injuries in my spine. Quickly, I became somebody who was working full time, 60 plus hours a week in upper management of various organizations, to being fully bedbound, unable to make the 8 steps anymore to my bathroom. When I went to doctors, unfortunately, most had no idea what Ehlers-Danlos syndrome was, being it a rare illness, and it's truly rarely diagnosed and rarely unheard of, unfortunately. With that, the majority of doctors would either accuse me of being a drug seeker, saying it was all in my head, or they would tell me, I'm sorry, this is your life, and there is nothing we can do for you. I searched 40 plus doctors for help with what was happening with my body. My vision started to go blurry. I could no longer be in hot water. I ended up with heart conditions such as tachycardia, where just going into hot water, my heart would race to 150, 160 beats per minute. I would have constant dislocations just trying to hit the remote button, for example, on the TV. The reach would cause my ribs to start dislocating. My shoulders would dislocate. My quality of life that I once knew and became accustomed to my whole entire life was completely gone, almost in a blink of an eye, because of what the illness had taken from me. Unfortunately, like I said, going to doctors, there was no option for me. And on the last hurrah, myself and my husband came down to Las Vegas to get married. When I got off that plane, I knew that there was no way that I could make this trip happen, let alone walk down the aisle to meet my husband. It was almost impossible. And it was brutal, brutal amounts of pain. And we figured out, we went to the dispensary here in Wisconsin. Cannabis is illegal here. And I did use it somewhat in Wisconsin, but in Las Vegas, it had just legalized in 2018 when we came down here. And the dispensary started to open. I was able to try legal cannabis for the first time, and it was like a wave crashed into me. All of a sudden, there was a relief that I didn't realize that existed before, that doctors said were impossible for me. That combined with the dry climate, I spent the next 3 days of my life living a life that doctors said could never be. I was walking, I was doing things that they said was impossible. And my husband promised me that we would move to Las Vegas. And I initially, was like, you're crazy. There's no way that we can just uproot our whole entire lives in Wisconsin and move to Nevada. And 8 months later, we were able to come down here. That's what really spiraled me into my advocacy journey, my research. I'm also a research analyst and writing journey. I wanted to know, how could this plant help me when they said that there was no other option for me? They said there was nothing else. And yet, here I was getting relief. From there, my research, I went down a research rabbit hole. I learned about vitamins, about nutrition, about so many holistic therapies that can help individuals with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome like myself. And with that, I was able to get out of the wheelchair. I'm no longer using my cane. I haven't used my wheelchair in about a year and a half, and about a year for my cane now. I no longer need the braces on a consistent basis to hold my sacrum together when I'm walking. And it's truly transformed my life in such an impactful way, which is why I do what I do now today. And there was a time that I didn't want tomorrow to happen because I had too much pain. And the doctor said that there was nothing else for me. I became suicidal. I wanted to end my life because I couldn't see myself surviving 50 plus years with excruciating pain with no relief, let alone making it the next 5 years. And thankfully, I had a great support system that helped me through my darkest days of my life. They witnessed things that I wish that they never had to witness. And they helped lift me when I could no longer lift myself. Because of that, that is why I do what I do now with advocacy, because I want people to understand that there could be an option out there for them that might help them to hold on until tomorrow. It can feel extremely hopeless when you are in the depths of your darkness and in excruciating pain, and there is nobody to help you. You know, you constantly think, at least I was conditioned to believe, that when you get sick, you go to the doctor, you get better, they fix you, right? That's what the healthcare system is for.
Yeah.
They're supposed to heal people. And then I myself was thrown into the healthcare system, and I realized that they can't heal everybody. They don't know about everything. There's some things that they're not able to help with. And unfortunately, many of them are unwilling to help. And in those circumstances, you know, it's real life is not Grey's Anatomy, unfortunately, right? They don't dive into it and, you know, all of a sudden there's 10 specialists on your team waiting to help you. That's not real life. And those things need to change. I always said I was given a second chance in life and I survived because if my story can help one person hold on until tomorrow, then it's worth it. His FMLA paperwork, we filled it out to be able to move here. And it said patient can no longer feed oneself, patient can no longer bathe oneself. And those words just ring in my head because that was my reality for so many years. And the only ones that I had on my side were my family. There were no doctors trying to help me. It was either I'm sorry or this is all in your head, despite having mounds of evidence that proved that it was not in my head. Unfortunately, that's what patients deal with on a continued basis. And that's what led me to my work with the Coalition of Patient Rights. I want to be a voice for the voiceless. There was a time when I was bedbound in my darkness. I could not come out and advocate. I couldn't come out and beg for people to help me and to listen to me. There was no way because my energy was just going to be able to survive till the next day. To
Yeah.
hopefully be able to possibly sit up with my family for dinner that evening, right? I wanted to advocate, right? Every single patient I believe wants to advocate for themselves, but when you're suffering, your goal is survival. It's not advocacy, and rightfully so.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And that's the only place your energy can go. So much, of what we want to talk about today, is that support system and that allyship and the work that, it has, driven you toward. And, I do just want to ask, because I think when we first met, how long were you in? I wanted to clarify, how long were you in a wheelchair?
It was, I haven't thought of the exact number in a while. 7 years I would have been an ambulatory wheelchair for. The first few years, unfortunately, I did not have a wheelchair, so I was confined to my bed. A very big misconception that I had myself was if you need a wheelchair, you get it prescribed to you, you get a wheelchair, right? And I remember when I got that prescription, it was heartbreaking because it was me going to this next step. But at the same time, it was so enlightening where it was like, wow, I might be able to go somewhere with my family again, and that was such a lifeline. And I remember I called the insurance company. I said, I have my prescription. I'm so excited. I had referrals from physical therapists at that time, doctors. And they said, well, if you don't have at least $5,000, it's pointless to make the appointment. I was still fighting for disability at that time. I had no income. I had fully stopped working. All of the finances were solely on my husband, and it was a very difficult time. We absolutely did not have $5,000. And it was just heartbreaking in that moment because it was like, wow, they offered me this lifeline. There was this carrot that was dangled for a better tomorrow. And then once again, it was just taken away from me.
Well, and
And
that,
then we were able to, from a flea market, actually find one
oh,
years
oh,
later, thankfully.
okay, okay. So there's another story in itself, probably. Um,
Yes,
but that kind of segues into so the current political and cultural climate has made navigating health and healthcare more challenging than ever. So, how does that environment impact the work you're doing with patients' rights?
it makes it more critical than ever. Patients are always out there existing. We are the only minority group that you can actually join at any time in your life. You know, disabled people do exist. And I think so often they are pushed into the shadows. It's like, oh, it could never be me. It's fine. It could never be me. That's sad, but it's not me. But it can be you. Any person in their life can become disabled and join it at any single time. I have a genetic condition, like I said, that left me as, you know, triple jointed my whole entire life. That's what they said. Oh, you're just bendy. You'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Gave me a few leg braces when I was a kid, and that was it. And I didn't have sufficient amounts of pain. I dislocate once in a while, but nothing compared to what I faced. And all of a sudden, I was working as a general manager actually, and I felt a bump in my spine. And that's when the pain started to cascade. And it took that one injury to just bring out a large amount of problems in my body in a very rapid pace. I went from working full time to being fully disabled, and there was nothing I could do about it. I was trapped in my body, and my mind was able to do all these things and think of all these things, but my physical body was unable to do anymore. It's a critical thing that we're doing in patient advocacy and making sure that we have healthcare. And additionally, if you're blessed enough that your loved ones or your parents get older, they do become patients when they're seniors, right? The majority of patients do need seniors, or seniors do need care. And if we're ourselves, we'll become patients at that point. So if you're lucky enough to go your whole entire life unscathed by a disability, eventually you will be a patient as well. These are our neighbors, our friends, our family that we need to protect. The healthcare in our nation is suffering, as we know. And that what makes this advocacy so critical to join groups like the Coalition of Patient Rights. If you are a patient, even if you can't be at Capitol Hill, that's okay, right? But just to have your voices heard, to be able to convey what you need as a patient is so critical. And if all of us start to amplify our voices as one, we will continue to get louder and louder and get the necessary changes that we need. Every single one of us needs healthcare, and it's time that we prioritize it
Yeah,
together as one.
yeah, 100%. So, so well said. And allyship and support and advocacy is really at the heart of Brucey. And so, in your experience, how does allyship show up for someone navigating ongoing health challenges? And what kind of allyship do people in recovery need?
Allyship is critical for patients. And it is very a lonely, dark place that I would not wish on anybody. And unfortunately, millions have to endure it. It becomes suffocating. You're all alone fighting your body with everything you have, fighting a body that's no longer working with you. And a lot of us who have become disabled, who had able-bodied um, before, it's even more difficult, right? Because well, not more difficult per se, but it's extremely difficult when your body completely gives up on you. It completely gives up on you. You're in this darkness that is overwhelming, that is just completely unexplainable unless you've experienced it yourself. It's all consuming. For myself, like I said, I did become suicidal when I was in pain. I I felt so alone in those moments. And I know for a fact that though the holistic treatments helped, moving helped, I would not be alive if it was not for my husband and my mother. 100% I know that I would not be alive because they pulled me out of that darkness. They listened to my pain. They listened to my cries for help, my need for help. They were there as a support system, carrying me to the bathroom, making me food when I could no longer cook for myself, washing and brushing my hair when I could no longer shower, making sure that I had accessible needs, right? Like the shower chair, the wand in the bathroom so I could bathe myself a little bit by myself. Though there was a lot of assistance that I needed and they were there for me. That allyship and that understanding is what helped save my life. them listening to me, them loving me through unimaginable darkness and pain. And now that I'm out of so much darkness, I can also see that they also need allyship. I can't imagine what my husband and mother went through. I know that my husband lost his wife and my mom lost her daughter. I could no longer sit up at holidays. I would sleep at Christmas because I could no longer sit and play a game of cards anymore without being completely wiped out from eating dinner with them. I could no longer participate in traditions. You know, they brought a lot to me in bed, and I'm so grateful for them. They were there at every single appointment with me, holding me up. They were there in my darkest hour, holding me up. But I also wish that we had more allyship for the ones who are holding up the patients, right? They
Yeah,
saw my pain.
yes,
Absolutely. And, you know, I was very open about my suicidal ideations when I was
yeah,
going through it because I wanted a lifeline. I didn't want to actually die. I just wanted to be better. I just didn't want to suffer. And I remember I would call my husband and say, "Hey, I called the hotline today and I'm really struggling." And he would hurry home, or I'd call my mom and they would hurry home to me. And those things are so critical, but at the same time, I never thought of the mental burden that they had with that either. And I think it's so critical that instead of just shoving people to the side who are caring for sick people in their lives, that we really support and elevate them just as much as we elevate patients. I'm blessed that I have a very strong support system who held in a lot of their pain on my behalf to make sure that I survived the next day. But it's also not fair of how much pain that they had to endure watching me suffer with no options given to me.
yeah, and that's so interesting and so both both beautiful and sad and loving. And I mean, there's so many things involved in, like, your caregivers and you know how much they supported you, but who supported them, and did they support each other? And I'm sure they probably did, but I've thought about that a lot through some of these conversations I've had with Bursting Through. I mean, I recently had a conversation with a woman who advocates and works in adaptive sports, and I have thought a lot about it. It's like, okay, great. There's a lot of support system and allyship in that with, like, the caregivers of the athletes. And, like, who's supporting the caregivers, you know?
Right.
And
Absolutely. Who's supporting their loved ones, who's watching the suffering? And
yeah,
I mean, it's heartbreaking. If you think of when someone you love is just sick from a flu, right? When they're in bed and stuck sick and throwing up, you just think, wow, like, I really hope you get better soon. Your heart breaks for them, right?
right.
Now imagine witnessing that amplified times a million on a daily basis with somebody, seeing someone who's no longer able to take steps where you have to carry them. The pain that our allies have to endure, I think is just as equal to the pain that we have to endure, but unfortunately is so often overlooked. And I myself overlooked that pain when I was going through it. I never asked my husband, "Hey, how are you doing with watching me no longer able to walk?" Because I was so consumed in my own pain, rightfully so, and darkness that I was no longer able to see what they were going through or even acknowledge it in that moment.
Well, and you can't be. I mean, you have to be focused on your survival and every ounce of energy towards you. Um, it's just, that's just not the right place for you, the right place for your energy at that time. So, but then, it's interesting to maybe reflect on that, and it's like, well, looking back and having those conversations about, what would have been uh, good support, or what did your husband and mom need that they didn't, and how do we, try to create that infrastructure, for lack of a better word, for people going forward. And um, and maybe that's just as simple as just acknowledging, right, that the caregivers and the loved ones who are being so strong and such fierce allies, they need you know compassion, love, and support, a shoulder, an ear, however you want to gonna put it, yeah, too. So that's
They
pretty,
do.
yeah, pretty
Absolutely. And to
powerful.
explain those fears that they have.
Yeah.
My family wasn't able to express the fears that they had to me. I know my husband had mentioned that he never thought that he'd be able to hike with me again. He never thought that he would be able to travel with me again and do all those things that are now becoming possible for us. And it's really a reality hits you moment in that moment where it's like, wow, you had to deal with the fact that the life that you thought we were going to have completely went away. And I had to deal with the fact that the life I thought I would have could completely go away. But there was no one there for them to lean on. And I think that's such a thing that we really need to acknowledge as well in the patient community and what type of support systems can we do, right? Because if he had discussed that with me in my darkness, I'm thankful he didn't. I know mentally I could not have handled that.
Oh, oh
Not
no.
at all. I could, not at all. And I'm thankful that he didn't necessarily have those conversations with me. But I do wish that there was more support systems. And that's something that I achieved to build as well, where we have caregiver support systems. You have other people that you can talk to and lean on. So many times I've heard the story where people say, well, why do you stay with them? If they're sick, you can just leave because that is your loved one. You don't leave because of somebody getting sick. And so often you hear of these stories of spouses that are told these things. And it's heartbreaking because they're fighting a silent battle and crying behind closed doors because they're the ones holding us up.
So, which kind of leads us to uh, something I'd love for you to share with everybody listening. For those ready to step up as active allies, whether for someone they love or for patients they've never met, what are three meaningful actions they can take to move us?
It's really making sure that they are compassionate, they're understanding, and they're willing to listen to the patient. It's going to be a very difficult thing for you, 100%. It is very hard to listen to the pain and the darkness and witness someone suffering that you love. I am acknowledging that. But to be able to offer that is the branch that we need. We don't need people to turn away when things get hard or because they don't want to witness our suffering. We need people to sit with us through our suffering, to say, hey, it might not be okay, but I'm here for you, to hold our hand when there's nobody else there to hold us up, to help hold us up literally, right? When we're completely melting into our darkness, into our illness. And from an advocacy standpoint, it's important that you amplify the voices of what the sick person in your life needs. They're not able to advocate for themselves, whether even it be going to the doctor. It might be something where just saying, hey, you want me to join that appointment with you? It could mean the difference of everything to them. When you are a category complex illness, you go to many specialists and doctors who unfortunately cannot help you, right? Because there's so many things going on with the body that they're not able to pinpoint it. And then a lot of them, in my experience, have not been able to help me manage it. Even if there is no cure, right? You can help me manage something, but that wasn't an option. Going to the doctor with them, asking them what they need, making them a meal if they need meals, right? There's so many things that we can do within our circles to help hold up our community. On an advocacy standpoint, you can also join organizations like the Coalition of Patient Rights and their executive director. We're a national nonprofit that works on regulatory change, highlighting system failures, treatment education, improving the environment, safeguarding new technologies, and really making sure that patients' rights and voices are amplified on a community and legislative level and beyond. And through that, you're able to join and have your voice heard and explain what you need as a patient. Even in that moment, as a patient, if you're not able to fight, that's okay. So many people that I've talked to now that I've joined my advocacy journey that I've talked to prior to that when I was bedbound say, Sarah, I wish I could do what you do. And I'm here to tell you, you don't have to do what I do. That's okay. It's okay to just survive and to focus on you. This is my path. But just throwing your voice out there and saying, hey, you know what? I tried to get a wheelchair and they wouldn't let me get a wheelchair. And this really hurt my quality of life. That way, we do have advocates that are out there fighting on the ground that are able to help get those messages across. but please also never feel less than as a patient that you're obligated to be an advocate. I think so many times patients feel like, well, if I could only do that, you're surviving, and that's enough. That's absolutely enough. You're fighting for your life. And I am proud of you every single day you wake up to fight for your life. And really just telling your allies what you need from them. If you are someone with a patient in your life, ask them what they need. A lot of times we feel like a burden. I felt like a burden for a very long time. I thought that I was ruining my family's life. I was convinced of that my sickness was ruining their life. And every single day I fought that battle mentally in my head. I went to therapy to work through it as well. It's a very difficult task to have when you're a patient yourself. It's all encompassing. So sometimes they don't know how to ask for help. I know I didn't all the time. Thankfully, I had loved ones in my life that could see where I was struggling. It's like, well, in my brain, you already helped me wash my hair. You helped me get my meal together. You helped me do all these things. I don't want to ask for an extra thing because now I'm in that burden mindset. And it's this vicious cycle that a lot of patients, unfortunately, are stuck in. So ask them what they need and come to organizations like the Coalition of Patient Rights and have your voice heard. You don't necessarily have to go to Capitol Hill fighting. You don't have to
Right.
do these massive steps, right? It's just your voice being heard is what matters. Right now,
Yeah.
patients are shoved into the shadows. If we all come together as a community, we're out of the shadows and we start amplifying that voice and making the change necessary that every single patient needs that's in the system now and will be in the future.
Yeah. There's resources. There's resources out there. There's the coalition, and like we talked about today, and I know, and we've got limited time left, but like you have an event coming up that if you want to take a minute to plug, it would be great. You have a,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yes, you can visit all of us there. Steve is also having a booth there. Super
yeah.
excited to have you. We are throwing our first annual Hoedown in the Desert. So it's in Las Vegas, Nevada, and it is all country themed. We have live entertainment. We have Jenny Hazard actually just signed on for a musician, so that's super exciting. We have Lex is a comedian from Las Vegas who is phenomenal, and he's going to be on stage doing comedy as well. We have kids that are doing free music programs that are doing entertainment for us as well. We have amazing things on stage. We also have axe throwing, potato sack races, a bounce house slide for the kids. And then great news is there's only $1 admission.
Oh,
So we
cool.
want to make it affordable for families.
Yeah,
We want you to be able to come out and have the day out and have an amazing time. We do have amazing, delicious barbecue food that will be for sale as well, with beverages and alcoholic beverages as well. And then we also have an awesome raffle table that we're putting together to win some amazing prizes. Every dollar that we get is going straight to support these programs and make sure that we can continue to fight for patient rights, to help support our community, the education programs, as well as our lobbyist experts to make sure that we put things into stone for patients going forward so they don't have the same discrepancies that so many of us are facing today. So we hope to you join us at the Hoedown. It is going to be a great time to boot, scoot, and boogie for a great cause.
a powerful day of information, education, fun, building community, all of those super important things that we talked about that really do tie into like allyship and patients' rights and the powerful journey that so many take and we're gonna kind of wrap it up there. And I want to thank you so much, Sarah, for you know sharing your very personal, very powerful, very vulnerable story that is both, heartbreaking and inspiring, and and sharing all of your knowledge about, the patient struggle, and the the love and support needs and everything. And I know that, you have inspired me and you've given me a lot to think about. And I'm sure that anyone listening, has been activated to think a lot about their loved ones and even their own journey as a patient. Because as you said, we're all patients at some point. So
Thank you.
thank
I
you so
really
much.
appreciate the time today.
Yeah. So you have
Thank
been
you.
listening. Yeah, thank you. You've been listening to Bursting Through. If this conversation moved you, share it, because our conversations are just the beginning. What really matters is how our actions create change. And if you're ready to take action, join the movement at burstingthrough.us. Remember, allyship is not a moment, it's a movement. Together, we are bursting through.